Of the nature and calibre of John Key. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Andrew Williams.
Order, Mr. Speaker. Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Point of order, Andrew Williams.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I seek leave of the House to table from Local Government New Zealand a copy of the speech by Lawrence Yule, the President of Local Government New Zealand, to the conference on Monday the 16th of July.
Leave is sought to table that document. Is there any objection? Yes. Oh, there is objection.
Oh.
There is objection.
Well, isn't that interesting, Mr. Speaker?
Andrew Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If the government does not want to receive a copy of the President of Local Government New Zealand speech, then I will have to refer to it. And, Mr. Speaker, I'm not surprised that the government wouldn't want to have a copy of that speech in the Parliament here today, because basically the President, Lawrence Yule, in the presence of the Minister of Local Government, in the presence of the Prime Minister, basically said that this government, in many respects to local government, had it wrong. Had it wrong, Mr. Speaker. So I'll refer to some of the things. The President Yule said, Local Government New Zealand does have some concerns with the government's better local government reform agenda. Local Government New Zealand questions the proposal to refocus the purpose of local government in the Local Government Act 2002 Amendment Bill with the removal of the four well-beings. We believe this fundamentally undermines the integrity of the relationship that local authorities have with their communities. Part of the purpose of the current Act ensures outcomes must be delivered to communities. If one of the reasons for the changes is to limit the role of local government, then we question this approach. Mr. Speaker, it's interesting that this government has made out that they have buy-in from local government in terms of the reforms of the Local Government Act. The Minister, David Carter, on Q&A on the 20th of May said, and I quote, I've spent a lot of time talking to local government people right around New Zealand over the last 6 weeks, and frankly, most, and this is the word, most local government politicians are very supportive of these reforms. At the moment, they get caught with requests from ratepayers for them to be involved in all sorts of projects which are often difficult to turn down because of the very wide purpose statement in the Act passed in 2002. So local government people tend to want reforms. Well, isn't it interesting, Mr. Speaker, that this week 78 councils attended the local government conference in Queenstown, and it was held in Queenstown because it was going to be held in Christchurch, but because of the earthquake it had to be transferred to Queenstown, so some people have criticised local government for having it there, but it was as a result of having to move it from Queenstown. But it is interesting, Mr. Speaker, that all 78 councils unanimously voted that they wanted the government to rethink its attitude towards the review of the local government bill. So isn't that interesting, Mr. Speaker, that on the one hand the Minister can go on New Zealand public television, well, we don't have public television anymore, the closest to it, TVNZ, but can go on TVNZ Q&A and say he's been in, and he's got buy-in from all around New Zealand from local government on this, that also Nicky Wagner, the chairman of the Local Government and Environment Committee that's considering this bill, and I'm on that same committee, said on the 12th of June in this House, our ministers, and she was referring to the former Minister Nick Smith and the current one, David Carr, have met with Local Government New Zealand, have met with mayors right across the country, regional council chairs, regional chief executive officers and numerous ratepayer groups in order to understand the issues and to formulate these amendments. Well, isn't it interesting that on the one hand we're being told by both the Minister and the chairman of the Local Government Committee that they have widely consulted and they have buy-in from local government, and this is supported by local government, and yet here is a media release from the President of Local Government New Zealand following the conference saying that 78 councils voted unanimously that this needed to be rethought by this government. Mr. Speaker, this is another case of this government not being in touch with what's happening out there in reality. It's another case of the government being very economic with the truth and making out that they have widely consulted, making out that they have buy-in on this, making out that they have support for this. But, Mr. Speaker, around New Zealand there are councils, there are communities, there are organisations, and there are many organisations that are very dependent on the support of their local authorities, very dependent on the cooperation of their local authorities for their communities, who are greatly concerned at what is proposed in this Local Government Amendment Bill. Mr. Speaker, I sit on that select committee, and we will certainly be asking the questions, the hard questions, of this government as to, is this just another one of their Dr. Zeus type fantasies? Has this been dreamt up from one of their Fantasy Island books that they want to have these radical reforms of local government? Or is it just another case of the government using excuses to move in on local government, to centralise power to Wellington, to have an autocracy and a totalitarian state, and basically to kick local government in the teeth?
The time for this debate has expired. I call on Government Order of the Day number 1.